I pride myself on saving turtles while I'm on the trace. That's probably the most exciting part, I think, on days when there's no traffic and there's just not a lot going on. Yeah. Turtles become my refuge of entertainment. Yeah. But they'll cross the road, from one side to the other. And these are big turtles. Yeah. And I'm not sure what type of turtle. I mean, they're big. They're not little bitty turtles. And they just start, one step, two steps across this highway, and they're not going to make it. Yeah. They're not going to make it. And last year there was a part where it was kind of trafficked a little bit, and I saw the turtle and I took off running because he had just taken those first couple of steps over the white line to the middle. Right. And I actually crossed over, waved the traffic down, waving my arms. People are stopping both ways. And I scooped him up, got him over to the other side. People were waving and honking. And there was actually a park ranger 2 cars back that came up. And he looked at me and he kind of mouthed, "Good job." He gave me the good job and kept on going.
That's cool.
From the business capital of the world, the Big Apple, New York's Middle Tennessee, it says here. Sounds riveting.
It is.
This is the Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast, a podcast about Middle Tennessee business owners and professionals.
Mostly. That's right. Thank you, Matt Wilson from the Mostly Marketing Podcast. Check his podcast out. I believe you can find it at just look up Mostly Marketing with Matt Wilson. He does a great job. He's an old radio guy like myself. This is the Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast, where we talk to Middle Tennessee business owners and professionals, entrepreneurs, about the challenges, all the different things. We have good conversations that kind of meander. I promise you that rabbit holes and tangents will come up. That's just kind of the nature of the beast. And today is no different. This is a video and audio podcast. You can check us out at MMTBP.com. That's MMTBP.com. We're shooting for an average of 10,000 downloads per episode. So if you can help us out, review, like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Today, I should have asked your name before we went on. I know it's Brad Meshell?
That's correct.
Brad Meshell. Bring that mic around real quick. There you go, so we can hear you. There you go.
Meshell. How's that sound?
That sounds good, buddy.
Perfect.
So, you have an organization, nonprofit, called Jacob's Audible.
Correct.
And that is inspired by your son. We're going back to October here. I met you at Jim Morris's Impact Effect event. And I got a nice blue hat with 444 on it. I have worn that thing quite a bit, just so you know.
That's awesome.
Especially when I take the tops off the Jeep, I got to keep the coiffed out.
That's right.
Even though I don't have much up there. But I like you're kind of sporting a new cap. You got the black on black thing going on.
I am. It was inspired by, I was watching some other podcasts and I saw a couple of guys, and then once you start buying hats or speaking about hats on Instagram and Facebook, you start getting immediate commercials and ads about hats, and I one of the ads came across, and I mean, it was a black on black, and it was somebody's logo from a business.
It's cool, isn't it?
I was like, that's it.
It's sharp.
I got to get it. I was like, I used to watch Rob Dyrdek back in the day with Robin Big, and he used to call it, when everything was black on black, he called it like Murdered Out. And he had this black SUV, and it was all black. Like, it's actually coming back a little bit. I saw a couple of cars. It's like that dull black.
It's a black matte kind of color.
Exactly. Yeah. So
all the logos, all the nomenclature, and everything is all blacked out, but it's so sharp.
It is. And it looks. I like it because it looks tough. It
really does. Mm-hmm. So, for those of you listening today for this episode, for nonprofit businesses here in Middle Tennessee, there's a ton of them. I've been a champion of you because I like not the gimmick, but the mechanism in which you use to get attraction to your cause. which is every year you are walking the Natchez Trace Parkway. Correct?
Yep.
This will walking be my
Yeah, walking. This will be my third year.
Third year doing it.
Yep.
How long does that take?
So the structure is I walk 15 miles a day for 30 days.
Right.
And so I drive down to Natchez and I start there. That's where mile 1 is. A lot of people, it ends in Nashville, but that's on which would be considered the ending of the trace. Mm-hmm. So I go down to Natchez and I start at mile 1 and I walk from mile 1 to mile 15. I have someone pick me up there, go back, rest for the night. The next morning, they drop me off at 15 and I walk to 30 and so on and so on. The last day is only 9 miles. So, but when I describe it, the math doesn't work out, but it's 15 miles a day, 30 days, no days off. It's exhilarating. It's a traffic highway. Yeah. So there's a lot of car dodging. Yeah. There's times.
And it's narrow.
It is narrow. There's no shoulder. It's a 2-lane highway, no shoulder, just enough to put the white paint on the side.
Right.
And it's missing in some areas. Uh-huh. And then it's usually like tall grass and maybe some weeds and things like that on the side. But I did notice when people ask me about the road, and so it's not a treadmill type walk. So when I walk 15 miles a day, I'm probably actually walking about 18 because I have to go 2 steps off, 2 steps back on as traffic comes by. Right. So it's not a straight line of 15 miles a day. But Mississippi has a tendency not to cut the grass on the side. Yeah. So it's a little bit higher. Wear long socks and things like that. But if you've ever driven through states, you can tell where the money is allocated to highway maintenance. So as soon as you cross into Tennessee from Alabama, the road gets clean, the grass is cut, which makes it a nicer walk as I come home from there.
It's funny because I took almost the entirety of the Natchez Trace coming home from the Woodlands one time, back when the I-40 bridge crossing in Memphis, crossing the river, they had shut it down because I think a boat hit it.
Right.
It was a few years back. Mm-hmm. And one of the alternative options was to get on, they had some other ones, and I saw the Natchez Trace, and I'm like, you know what, I'll give that a shot. I've been up on a couple of parts of it here in Middle Tennessee. I didn't realize it was like 45 miles an hour.
It is. And it's 45 windy too. Yeah. So it'd be one thing if you could do 45 and it was a straight shot.
Was not a time saver.
It was not. And so you're doing 45 and it is monitored. The state troopers, you got your rangers and things like that, but there's corners you can't do for it. You got to slow down to 25, 35 and get back up. But that was a great alternate route. We actually went to Arkansas when that bridge was out, but we came back north on that trip to visit my father-in-law's hometown. But I know exactly the time you saw it. I think a boat did hit it. It was down for a while.
Yeah, it was. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, it's back up now.
It is.
But why the walk? How does that play into what you're doing?
So when Jacob was diagnosed in 2021, I went into a complete darkness. I was angry. I was scared. I didn't understand. I was in a terrible place, and I didn't know much about autism at that point. I felt that Jacob was taken from me. I felt like something was taken from him.
Right.
And I didn't know what to do. And it took me about 4 months of solitude. And at the same time, I tell this story, my son Jackson was born a month before Jacob was diagnosed. So it was really tough because I was going through the motions of joy having Jackson being born and fighting this inner darkness of Jacob's diagnosis. So with the highs and the lows of the lows, it was a tough time for me. I was still present, obviously, through being a father and being a husband, but I think it did take a toll on our marriage. But when I finally came out of that mentality, when Jacob turned 3 that December, the Spirit lifted me and said, Brad, this isn't about you. This is about me using you for a higher purpose. And that's where the idea of Jacob's Audible came in, because I want to do something Jacob be proud of. I want him to be proud of me.
Yeah.
It wasn't going to be in the ways that I thought it was going to be. I had to reimagine and reinvent myself. But when we started Jacob's Audible, I wanted to do something big. I wanted to splash to let people know that the organization was here and we were here to help. So I said, okay, I started looking at different fundraisers and different things. And there's like 5Ks and 10Ks, but I'm like, it's been done.
Yeah. Golf tournaments,
things like that. And I started looking at the big stuff, walks across America, doing the, Mount Everest or, Appalachian Trail. And I'm like, I'm not really cut out for that. I don't think I'm not a cross America guy.
Right.
So I just kept brainstorming. And then during COVID, we live at the end of the Trace. I live a mile and a half from where the Trace ends in Bellevue. And we drove the Trace during COVID. That was one of our get out the house. We all jumped in the van and we went and drove the Trace. And when we drove the Trace, I had never been any further than maybe Leapers Fork, 4 or 5 miles, 10 miles down the Trace. So I looked it up. I was like, wait a minute. This is doable. 444 miles. Started doing the math. I said I can do it in a month. And it was April, which is Autism Awareness Month.
Right.
And I was like, man, if I can do this could really be impactful, not just on a local level, but hopefully a national level. And I reached out. There was one person that had walked it before me. So, you get on the Google machine and you start looking up, has anybody ever walked it? And one person, her name's Andra Watkins, and she's a New York Times bestselling author. And I reached out to her on Instagram, not thinking I'd get a response, but she responded right away. She wrote a book about Meriwether Lewis, who died on the Trace.
Oh, wow.
She's a huge historian, and so she documented her walk in 2016 to promote that book. She walked from Natchez back to Nashville, had a book signing here when she returned. But along the way, she wrote another book called Not Without My Father. And that's a book I actually read, and it details her trip down the Trace. And so she gives me this advice. She says, don't forget about this. Don't forget about this. And as the conversation ended, I said, do you have anything else for me? She goes, yeah, don't do it.
Really?
She said, don't do it. It's brutal, but I'm one of those guys, when you say I can't do it, it's, and people said the same thing about nonprofit. When I said I wanted to start a nonprofit, I got a lot of negative feedback. They're like, it's a lot of work. It's hard to get funding. It's, all these negative attributes to starting a small business, especially a nonprofit, especially when you need to receive funding through generosity and people's generosity. So, but that's where the spark of the walk came from.
Right. And what was that first year like? How many did you ever feel? I mean, you had to have felt like, oh gosh, I can't. This is just. 15 miles a day. You can, if you're walking, 3 miles an hour at a 3.0. That's a good walk.
It is, and I didn't really.
It's 5 hours a day,
right? And I didn't think about when I first did it. I was a little nervous. I trained, and I got in touch with people who did Ironmans, people who did half marathons or marathons, and I got a lot of great advice. Yeah. And the one thing that Andra didn't do that I learned was it's not you're not running or jogging. So the cardiovascular or the endurance part really doesn't come into play.
Right.
As far as from a respiratory aspect. But the one thing I was told over and over again was it's all about your feet. Right. You have to take care of your feet. You got to wear the right socks, the right shoes. You have to have a shoe rotation. You have to have all these different things about your feet. And when I read Andra's book, the first thing she said was the first 2 days she blistered horribly.
Wow.
She was wearing Tevas on the Trace, walking this thing.
Oh, sandals?
Sandals.
Oh, my gosh.
Hiking sandals.
Come
so she
on.
blistered terribly in the first week or so.
Right.
And so I had an advantage of that. But I put this thing together in like 6 weeks. I mean, I looked online, printed out some maps and said, okay, I'm going here, I'm going here, I'm going here. Had to look at lodging along the way because it's rural. I mean, there's Jackson, Mississippi there. And then you go through nothing for a long time, and then you get into Tupelo, and then you get into the Muscle Shoals area, and then obviously Nashville. But there's a lot of in-between days where there's not much there.
Right.
But when I wasn't nervous. I never got nervous. I was more concerned about keeping my feet well and keeping my body in good shape because I didn't want to let people down. I didn't want to let myself down. I think that was one of the big things that was on my mind. But the scariest part was when I first took the 10 to 12 steps and a car came by. That first car, it's almost like when you play football and you're in the game and you got butterflies until you take that first hit. And as soon as you take that first hit and get up, you're ready. You're in the game. And so when that first car went by, and I guarantee it was the first 20 yards I was on the trace, I started having a little doubts.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know about this, because it was pretty close. I was like, I got to do this for 30 days. It's 5 or 6 hours a day. And that's what I usually average. I average about a 20-minute mile. I try to do about 3 miles an hour. Sometimes
that's an average pace.
2.6, 2.8. I wear an Apple Watch, so it kind of, gives me a pretty good idea of what my pace is and things like that. But like I said, once again, depending on how often you got to sidestep the traffic. And then I stop and look at some of the history. I stop and, there's little bridges with great, creeks and water, a lot of views. I'll take some pictures, videos. I do film some funny reels along the way, just to kind of keep the day going and document the trip. So where people, the big thing about it is I want to share it with everyone.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you're actually doing this and you have shoe rotations and everything, in the first year, you kind of had to throw it together as quickly as you could. In 6 weeks, you said.
Yeah, I think it was a little less than 6 weeks, and it makes me smile when I think about that, because when I told my wife I was going to do it, she said, "Oh, so next April." And she said, "Next April." I said, "No, the one coming up. It's I think January, early February." Where I'm like, "No, I'm gonna do it this April," and she still doesn't forgive me for year one.
Oh wow!
And now we're on year 3, but.
Has anybody reach out to you? You sneaker companies and things of that nature to back you?
I have tried extensively. So on the shoes, so when I first started year 1, I was wearing New Balance, and I was maybe a week into the walk, and I didn't feel comfortable.
Right.
And I didn't know it at that point, because I'd never really walked this intensely up to this point. And I stopped in Jackson. I went into a Feet Fleet, or I think something like that. Yeah. And I got in there and told them what I was doing. They put me on a little machine. The guy's like, "This is the wrong shoe for you. This is a narrow shoe. You have a wide foot in the front." So he's like, "Have you ever heard of Ultras? ALTRA, Ultras."
Yeah.
And so their niche is they have a wide shoebox. Okay, so shoebox meaning where your toes are in that area, and that's what they take pride in their shoes. So they're made for long trails, long hikes, and things like that. So he put
endurance,
right? Yeah. But they have a great grip on the bottom. They make a trail shoe. They make a road trail shoe, different types of grips. And he put me in this shoe, and it was amazing. So I'd use those shoes till Tupelo, went to another place, got another pair. And ever since then, I'll never wear anything else. I'm an Ultra guy from this point on. But I reached out to him on Instagram. It's very hard to get to the company. I actually DM'd the owner, one of the owners. There's 2 owners. DM'd him, didn't receive anything back. I did get there's some regional marketing persons for Ultra, and she did reach back out to me last year. So I did get 2 free pairs from different stores. She's not allowed to give me just directly. Right. But she can get them from stores that'll sponsor me. So I did get that last year. So I got 2 new pairs last year, but it's something that I would love to do going forward, because I exclusively wear Ultra. So I'd love for someone from Ultra to step in and say, "Hey, listen, we'd love to, take on a full sponsorship."
Well, you hear that, guys? He's talking right to you if you're paying attention. I think it's a good opportunity. You're on the road for 30 days.
I think it's a great idea.
And you could be dressed up like a NASCAR.
That's right. That's come across my mind. We talked about that. As this thing is in year 3 now, and obscurity is always the hardest. From any new business or any effort at all.
It's a 5-year run at least.
And that's what someone told me. I remember at the end of year 2, I didn't understand why the walk wasn't as big as I thought it was going to be.
Right.
I was like, "Oh, this thing's going to be all over the news. I'm going to be on Oprah. This is going to be great." Well, that hasn't happened yet. But the more I talked to people in the space that understand how these things work, they said, "Brad, you do it 3 years, you'll get a little more attention. You do 4 or 5, people take you seriously."
Right.
And he said, "Tunnel to Towers, things like that. The guy that walks across America or walks up the East Coast, they didn't catch up with him till year 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And he, you know, now he's pretty significant. Actually, someone else has taken over the walk. I think he retired. But so that's what I'm looking. So that's what I'm looking forward to, is hopefully as this thing continues to grow, I'll be able to step into the sponsorship space, because and everyone who's in the nonprofit world knows that the hardest thing is to fundraise. Fundraising is very difficult. Some people will step up and just give you money, but a lot of people who want to donate want value. And that's where sponsorships, I think, could come in, because people will give money, but they want to know what am I getting for my money?
Right.
And I think the exposure that we could bring to those companies, and hopefully I've gotten pitched a documentary for 2025.
Yeah.
So I'm super excited about that. And having something like that and wearing certain types of, you know, gear. I wear a ruck pack, which is a Go Ruck item. Go Ruck, you hear that out there?
That's right. Go Ruck.
Go Ruck.
Come on.
I wear their backpack, and so I'm looking forward to maybe some of those opportunities in the future.
Hey, Middle Tennessee electricians, handy women and men, and just those of you needing better commercial LED lighting solutions. Yeah, I know, there's so many of you. I have to tell you, there's another option than just the big orange and blue box stores now. Try j2lighting.com. At j2lighting.com, we have the latest technology in all types of commercial LED lighting, from UFO high base, drawers, area lights and shoeboxes, right on down to a slimline wall pack that doesn't look like a fist coming off the wall like most other wall packs do. You get what I'm saying, right? Many of our fixtures are wattage and color temperature selectable, which means you have more control over the brightness and appearance in your dark spaces. Check us out at j2lighting.com for a great local source for your commercial LED lighting ideas, even full color light show dreams. Yeah, totally. That's the letter J and number 2 lighting.com. j2lighting.com.
How many steps is that a day, roughly?
You know what? I'm not sure. I think
Not
it's
sure.
Is it 12,000? I want to say.
Is it only 12? I guess
No,
yeah,
it might be
makes sense.
19 or something like that.
But I mean, you know, how do you fuel yourself? Are you trying to eat clean, or is it carb loading in the mornings? Are you eting pasta and Alfredo sauce and all that stuff, or what do you do?
You got it.
You got it.
Yeah, you got it. So the first year, I had this huge ruck pack, because I treated it as I was going on a 3-day hike.
Right.
And I packed my bag full of all these snacks, peanut butter crackers, power bars, Nutri-Grain bars, 3 bottles of water, a sandwich, and all these different things. And I realized after year 1, actually halfway through year 1, I was like, I don't need this stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't need half of it. I was stopping. It took me forever year 1. I mean, I was averaging 7.5 hours a day.
Wow.
And
that's a long day of walking. Man.
But I was stopping to eat lunch. I would sit on a bridge, talk to the birds, and all these different.
Were you by yourself?
Oh yeah, I do it by myself.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I got permission year 1 from because it's a national highway. It's a national park highway, so it's not considered one of the national parks, but it's under the umbrella of national parks. So I had to email the director and tell him what I was doing and things like that. And he just came back and kind of gave me permission and said, be safe, because we don't have people who walk the trace. A lot of people bicycle the trace. It's a huge bicycle type road that's traveled very often. There's events and different types of fundraisers that they do with the people who bicycle. But I always giggle a little bit because I get to walk against traffic. So I can see what's coming. These poor bikers, they can't see the cars behind them. They have to stay on the right side of the road. So I was like, I think it's more dangerous to be one of them than it is for me. Because if someone comes at me and they're getting a little too close, I can jump off into the weeds,
right,
and see what happens. But that first year, just stopping to have lunch and doing, I was like, so halfway through it, I'm like, I need to speed up a little bit, because it was a long day. I was starting at 9:00, not getting off the trace till 4:35. But to answer your question, year 2, I mean, it totally minimized, and the backpack was heavy. So I'm adding weight to it on top of the walking. So year 2, totally different. I carried maybe 1 power bar and some different types of vitamin C packets to put in the waters, carried 3 16-ounce waters, and that was it.
Right.
But it sped me up. I did, it went from 7.5 to 5.5 hours. But so you realize your body doesn't need what you think it needs over the course of that. And I've gotten into nutrition a little bit more since I've been doing the walk. And you're starting to realize that, our bodies are stronger than you think. I mean, that's why fasting works. I mean, we can go days and weeks without eating. We're Americanized, right? That's what we do. We eat. But the one thing that you get off that trace, you are craving carbs. Yeah. I mean, I ate so much bread in year 1 and 2. Yeah. I mean, it was amazing because I came back and I was like, oh, you're going to lose 20 pounds.
Right.
I didn't lose a pound.
Really?
I came back and they're like, how did you not lose weight? And I started thinking, I was eating, full-blown 12-inch sandwiches, not the Subway. I was going to Walmart and grocery stores buying my own bread.
Like the catered sandwiches.
Yeah, putting a pound of meat, cheese. I made my own sandwich, eating chips. Right. I mean, you just go through this crazy carb craving when you get off of there. And, I would eat a whole medium pizza and all this other stuff. And, I would just take care of it. And then 20 minutes later, I was passed out. Yeah. And I did that continuously. So I didn't lose any weight. But yes, to answer your question, it is a carb overload. Yeah. Unfortunately. But this year, I'm going to try and not do that.
Try protein.
I am. I'm going to go carnivore, I think. Yeah. I'm going to go carnivore.
I think you'll probably lose weight that way.
That's the goal. Yeah.
That's amazing that you're walking. Well, if you're walking average about, 12,000 steps a day, that's what they recommend anyway. 10 to 12,000 steps.
Yeah, so it's got to be more than that then. Maybe
I would imagine
it might be 28,000 or something like that. I should know this number. I feel bad that I don't know it. No, I think it's like 28,000. Anybody out there, do the math real quick. Let me know.
So hotels and stuff like that. You got a team in the first year. Did you have a team that was, you said picks you up and then brings you somewhere, then brings you back at your last check-in point?
Correct.
Right, your last checkpoint?
I was very fortunate. Year 1, I had a really good friend. His name was Tim, and he volunteered to go with me. He worked at Starbucks, and I called him. I said, hey, what do you think about taking some time off? And he's like, I don't like that place. So he quit. So he just quit.
Alrighty.
He's like, oh, I'm going to move back to Ohio anyway. I'll come with you. So basically, we drive down, and he stays with me. We only need 1 room, 2 beds. And what we do is, we wake up, he drops me off. And when he drops me off at mile 1, I walk to 15, he picks me up. We go back to wherever we're staying. But the difficult part for that person, the pickup person, is they have to kill 6 hours during the day. Now, he's a big YouTube guy, so he didn't mind. He'll sit in the car for 6 hours and watch YouTube videos. But some days, if we're in between hotels, so day 1, you can go back to the hotel because we stay in Natchez for 2 days, maybe 3, depending on how far up we want to drive and drop off. But there's days where we have to pack up in the morning and check out because we're moving up the highway.
Yeah.
So those days,
check stop.
Yeah. So, but the thing is, we don't check in until I'm done.
Right.
So there's really no place for him to go back to if he wants to go back to bed, take a nap, or just go hang out. So that's the most difficult part. So year 1, he did it with me. Incredible trip, because you got to realize you want to make sure that you like the person that's doing this with you, because you're sharing a lot of space. You spend 30 days with anybody, you'll find out
real quick
if you have an alignment or not. Yeah. And so that was an incredible success. I was very fortunate. Year 2, I actually took my mother. Year 2, my mother is at the time was 69 years old, and in Andra's book that she wrote about the trace, it's called Not Without My Father, and she took her 80-something-year-old father with her, and he was her pickup drop-off person. And a lot of the book is talking about their relationship and how this was like kind of like a one last trip. They had a very, very shaky childhood. So a lot of the book talks about mending that relationship, bringing him on this journey. So my mom, unlike her situation, my mom's been my best friend forever. I don't look at her as a typical mom. I look at her as she's always been there. She's drugged me out of ditches. She always answers the phone. She's always been there. And I thought it would be very unique to share this with her. and have her there on a daily basis. And also I knew, so I struggled with Tim on the year one with the timeliness.
Right.
I had to drag him out of bed, and sometimes when I was done, he would be late picking me up, which is very frustrating because if you're done for the day, you're done. Yeah. I mean, I want you sitting at the mile marker with the hazards on, waiting for me.
Yeah.
My mom is the total opposite. My mom is very efficient, and she gets up early. She's ready to go. And every day when I was done, she was there. She was always there. So that made that trip very, very unique on both parts, because my goal is to get better at preparing every single year. So the lodging works in different ways. Year one, we didn't have any really sponsors or anybody. I mean, we winged this thing. I self-funded it. But year two, we got more people involved. People donated their points for the hotels. A lot of the B&Bs would donate a night, which is kind of cool. So we got to stay in some very unique places along the Trace. But it's tight quarters. We don't go to a lot of dinners. We usually, to save money, we just use, like I said, we go to grocery stores, Walmart, and just get different snacks. But as the journey goes on, you're going to have those disagreements. Yeah. You're going to have that, hey, just staying 30 days in hotel rooms with anyone, there's going to be some times when things get a little feisty.
It gets tense.
It does. Yeah. It does.
It's called being human.
That's right.
Yeah. So this is kind of a business. What is it that tell me about, your childhood and stuff like that? How were you brought up? Where did you live?
So I'm originally from New Orleans, Louisiana.
Okay.
And
it's funny because everybody from New Orleans to me sounds like they're from Long Island.
That is very true. Yeah. And everyone that I've met, because I traveled a lot in my 20s, and everywhere I went, Midwest, Northeast, or even California, they're like, what part of Jersey are you from?
Yeah, a little bit of Jersey there.
What kind of New York, Jersey accent? Because, and when people think Louisiana, they think Cajun, they think Atchafalaya, they think Boudreaux type voice, and like,
Princess and the Frog.
Right, exactly.
New Orleans, y'all.
Right. Yeah. And so being from New Orleans proper, the city, it's more of a city type voice. It's a very, just like New Jersey, it has its own little accent. It has a speed to it. We usually, we talk fast, we think fast, we move fast, much like New Yorkers do. But there's a little bit of a difference in, I always think, the dialect that we use, the verbiage that we use, but it's something that I've gotten my whole life. They're like, "Oh, you're from Jersey, you're from New York," and I have to, because you just don't think that about New Orleans. You always think, "Hey, my name is Boudreaux. I got the Pidot and I got the Pollons, and my name is Picon." And you get that. You want to hear that accent when you talk to somebody from Louisiana, but. I'm very, very brought up in the heart of the city. We grew up in a traditional shotgun house in New Orleans, and shotgun house, one entrance in the front, so that you have to walk through everybody's room to get to the back room. Normally you have a side door where the kitchen was. Very, very tight quarters. I have two sisters and myself, my mom and my dad, But growing up in New Orleans is very unique. You see things and do things at a very early age. Some things that happen in New Orleans, some people may not do their whole lives. We have things like Mardi Gras. We have things, we have different festivals. It's, laissez le bon temps rouler, right? It's just a feel good, do whatever you want, whatever makes you happy, eat, drink, and be merry type of atmosphere. And it's very adult-like. Yeah. So, and you learn it at a very young age. You don't know what you don't know. And I didn't know that until I started to travel, where I would tell people, I remember the first weekend I was in college, they talked about, hey, we have to go out at like 8:30, 9 o'clock. Yeah. And I said, what are you talking about? They're like, well, the bars close at 2. I'm like, wait, what? Because in New Orleans, they don't close. Yeah. We didn't go out till midnight in New Orleans. So it's just a different upbringing. My dad was very, very unique, very New Orleans guy. He knew everybody. He had like 7 jobs. He was the guy who knew a guy type deal.
The connector.
He was the connector, right?
Yeah.
So I got to learn a lot from him. And I think that's where the entrepreneurship started, was with my father. I mean, he would do anything from putting up fences. We had horses, race horses growing up. He was a professional crabber. That went out to Lake Pontchartrain and pulled crab traps. I mean, he could do it all. So I think growing up, I was on his hip for most of my life. That's where I learned, I think, in the beginnings. And then I got into the restaurant business in New Orleans and the bar business. And that's when you really start to see that's part of like, not so much salesy personality, but entrepreneurial, like, because it's all about people.
Yeah.
It's all about selling yourself and selling who you are to obviously, gain the audience's trust and gain, your consumers and wanting them to come back to you and tip you well and all those things. So I think that's where it all, because that's New Orleans. New Orleans is a tourist city. It relies on tourism. People love going down there because of the people.
I've been through New Orleans. I have to do some work occasionally in Baton Rouge. And the first time I drove down there, I actually intentionally crossed the Lake Pontchartrain Causeway because I'm fascinated with architecture and bridges like that. We grew up with the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel on the East Coast, which I don't think is the longest bridge in the world, but the Pontchartrain Causeway is longer.
Yeah.
I think it's about 28 miles.
26, 28, something like that. Yeah.
It's a marathon length.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. It's something that's very unique because one of the length too, if you ever cross that thing in bad weather, it could get very scary. Now I think they've done something recently, but the original bridge didn't have elevated sections on the side, right?
Really?
So I mean, cars would go off that thing. They lose control and it would go right off the side. I think now recently,
it's pretty shallow though, isn't it?
In some places, that's what's unique about Lake Pontchartrain. So if you go to the middle, if you're in the outskirts of Lake Pontchartrain, it's very murky, very dirty. But if you go to the middle, it's a little more shallow and it's clear, for obvious reasons. Just the way the tide pushes it out and then how the mist, all the different things that I can't speak on.
There's so many things that in that area, that whole ecosystem, that are just confounding.
Yeah, because the Mississippi comes through, empties into the Gulf. And it, like you said, the ecosystem is incredible there. But that bridge is iconic. And then there's another street in New Orleans. It's called Elysian Fields, and my high school was right off of that street. But it's the only street, I think, in America, I wouldn't say in the world, that goes from a lake to a river. So it starts at Lake Pontchartrain and it goes all the way through the city and it ends at the Mississippi River. So I think it's the only street that can go from a lake to a river.
Yeah. Whenever I go to Baton Rouge and I meet somebody new, I say, "Isn't that Old Man Riv over there?" And they're like, "What?" I say, "You don't call it that?" "No." Big Riv? No, we don't call it that at all.
That's right.
That's what I would call it.
Yeah.
If I lived here.
Yeah. And
Big Riv.
Big Riv, yeah. And it's
a big river, man.
It is. It is. And it's at the widest section because it's about to empty into the Gulf. But and I didn't know a lot of history about it until I got, you obviously have Louisiana history in high school. And when you grow up somewhere, you're so used to it, you really don't dig into the history of it but when I started to travel in my 20s, you start going up to St. Louis. And then, I think all the way up in Minnesota.
That's where it starts.
There's parts of the Mississippi, you could walk across it or get across
Jump across it.
And so it's
you certainly could swim in it because you probably don't want to swim in it to pass St. Louis, I would imagine.
That's right. And it's spectacular as that part. But then you get to where the New Orleans section area is. It's wide. And it's got that swirling current. That's the thing too, man. You fall in that thing, you're gone. Because
there's no swim. Nobody ever swims in that thing.
No, you don't want to swim that thing.
You ever watch Seinfeld? Remember the show Seinfeld?
Absolutely.
You remember when Kramer decided to take the Hudson River to work?
He did. Yeah, he had all these people swimming the Hudson.
Oh my gosh!
But every time he came back,
that's where I grew up around.
What is that smell?
Yeah. And it's like, dude, it's the Hudson River. Are you out of your mind?
Yeah.
it's like if when the plane landed in the Hudson, that would be the worst part of it for me. I got to get in that.
Yeah. That's a great movie too. Was that Tom Hanks, right?
That was Tom Hanks.
That's great. But to go back to that episode, I know it's kind of a tangent, but I pride myself on knowing every Seinfeld episode, but that's the one where Kramer gives Elaine the mattress.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's sleeping on the mattress after he's swimming in the Hudson, and he gives her that mattress, and it's some kind of special mattress, and he gives it to Elaine, and she goes to sleep in it the first night. And she's like, "Oh my goodness, what is this smell?" But that episode is pretty epic. But as you know, just like the Mississippi, I mean, when you get to the mouth of Mississippi, it's carried all the dirt and trash from the beginning, and it's coming into right into there, and it's obviously going to dump out into the Gulf very shortly.
Right. That's similar with the Hudson River. As soon as it gets down to the Manhattan, it's you just don't want to even.
Yeah, that part of the Gulf of Mexico is same thing. That shoreline Gulf of Mexico is murky and it's muddy and it's dirty, but you go about 100 miles out the Gulf, it's clear.
It's beautiful.
But it's awesome. That's how far you got to go out to get. That's where the fishing is out that way. Right. Yeah, you got to get away where the fish could actually breathe and live a little bit further out.
You got to wonder if those rivers ever emptied the stuff that they would find.
Oh,
did you hear about Lake Mead? Remember in the past couple of years, it got down to...
Is that the Vegas?
Vegas. Because I lived out there as well.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I guess, all of the New York crime families were getting a little nervous. Maybe the Chicago crime families were getting nervous too, because Lake Mead started getting down to some of its lowest levels in its history, before it filled up. And they were finding barrels with bodies in them.
Oh, I bet.
And all sorts of stuff. Yeah. And it was like, oh my gosh,
Yeah, I can only imagine. I'm sure the same thing. I'm sure that Mississippi water has got because like I said, once
it hides so many secrets.
That part of the Mississippi, like I said, you could see the swirls that go in there. So if you dump somebody, it's gone. You'll never see it again. But
it's not like, akin to the Tom Sawyer era.
Not at all. Not at all. And then to go on a little bit of history of the Natchez Trace. It was used as a mail route at some point, but the beginnings of it was people would float their supplies down the river, down the Mississippi, and they would sell them at the ports. And they used the Natchez Trace to walk back home.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was something that was very unique to it. So I think about...
Well, how old is the Trace?
I think it became... So you figure Lewis and Clark era, 1800s.
Yeah.
I assuming 1800s, but it became like a national highway in 1906.
Okay.
I'm not... Don't quote me on that, but I think I'm close.
It reminded me, because I grew up in the Northeast, and there's a lot of parkways that were designed for horse and buggy and even early stage automobiles when they first started coming out. The Sawmill River Parkway in Westchester County that comes off of 684, and it'll bring you down into Yonkers, and it eventually turns into the Henry Hudson that brings you down the west side of Manhattan. And that is it's a fun road if you have the right car.
Right.
Because it's hilly, it's curvy and everything. But you don't want to be walking on that thing.
No.
Because there is the speed limit on there is 70 miles an hour.
Yeah. And that's what's unique about the Trace is, so as you're walking down the paved highway, because I think Andrew Jackson made it official mail route. I think it dates back to where the Andrew Jackson era. But the Trace, the paved part, isn't the original path.
Yeah.
So as you're traveling the Trace, you'll see these little signs that say Old Trace, Old Trace, and you look, and it's actually just a footed pathway that you could take. People take the Old Trace, and it's just you walking as they would have walked.
How far off the paved part does it take you?
It depends, because it kind of zigzags throughout the, from south to north. There's different areas that you can go through. I think it's more of a touristy type deal, but it still gives you this
like an Appalachian Trail kind of.
Yeah, it gives you the sensation that you're walking back with the people with with Meriwether Lewis and things like that. And there's a place called the Sunken Trace where you can walk through that, and it shows you where the people, the predators would stay up high, and then whoever was walking, they would come over and either kill them or steal their goods or anything like that. I mean, it was the Wild West of highways there. It was not something you just traveled very easily. And like I said, Meriwether Lewis died on the trace. They're not sure if he was shot. I think it's documented that he may have committed suicide, but there's different things, but we'll never know.
Right.
They found him dead the next morning after he had just spoken to someone. I mean, that's how it's documented.
Wow.
We'll never know, but
you get stopped by cops and stuff while you're on there? I would think that you do.
This is my favorite part is year one. I was maybe 30 miles in and I got pulled over, and it was an older gentleman and a younger gentleman, and they pulled me over and they both look at me and go, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
And I'm dressed in shorts, t-shirt. I got the backpack on. I got my hat on. I don't carry a weapon. You can't carry a firearm on the trace. I mean, I have my license here in Tennessee, but you're traveling through different states on a federal highway, so that's not something you want to have to explain or I don't know how the laws translate, but if you come across the wrong person, you don't want that to come up. So I carry like a Rambo hunting knife, and I carry like a bear mace. Right. So I figured if I can squirt it with some mace, maybe create some distance, I could get away. That's my plan so far. But when I got pulled over, like, "What are you doing?" I explained to them what I'm doing. And that first cop, they're like, "All right," they searched my bag. They took my license, they ran a background on me and everything like that. But real nice, super nice. But they ended up doing a real video with me. And the next day I got pulled over again. Yeah. And so there's local police that'll, they'll patrol, so to speak. They'll have certain sections, counties that they'll patrol that part. But then you have the National Park Service, who has their own set of officers. Yeah. So that was a local cop the first time. The second time it was a National Park Ranger who pulled me over. Same thing, really nice. Explained to him what I'm doing. And he said, "Listen, I'm going to do you a favor. I'm going to radio up to everyone else from here to Tupelo that you're walking through, because you're going to keep getting pulled over." So he did that for me, and I went up to the next one, and the guy didn't pull me over. He just pulled on the side and said, "Hey, love what you're doing. I think it's great. If you need anything, let us know." He gave me like his direct number. And then the next day it was the same gentleman. I think they patrol like 100 miles each or 50 miles. They'll go up 50 miles, turn around, come back. That's their shift. Yeah. But he came back and checked on me the next day. He's like, "Hey, you're still doing well. Everything's going well." I'm like,
"That's awesome.
It's doing good." So now, I've got a rapport with the, Do
you give him a heads up when you're about to embark on it?
I didn't last
Seems
year.
Like a good idea, maybe.
I didn't last year, but I didn't get pulled over year two. Yeah. Not one time did I get pulled over. I waved to a couple of them. They just went on by. I pride myself on saving turtles while I'm on the trace. That's probably the most exciting part, I think, on days when there's no traffic and there's just not a lot going on. Yeah. Turtles become my refuge of entertainment. Yeah. But they'll cross the road, from one side to the other. And these are big turtles. Yeah. And I'm not sure what type of turtle. I mean, they're big. They're not little bitty turtles. And they just start, one step, two steps across this highway, and they're not going to make it. Yeah. They're not going to make it. And some of these secluded areas of the trace, it's 50 miles an hour, 45, 50, depending on it. But these people are doing 75. I mean, they're just smoking it because there's nobody there. There's nothing around. Yeah. So when these turtles come, when they come upon these turtles, they're just going. So what I do is I pride myself on scooping them up and taking them back over to the other side. Well, last year there was a part where it was kind of trafficked a little bit, and I saw the turtle and I took off running. Because he had just taken those first couple of steps over the white line to the middle. Right. And I actually crossed over, waved the traffic down, waving my arms. People are stopping both ways. And I scooped him up, got him over to the other side. People were waving and honking. And there was actually a park ranger 2 cars back that came up, and he looked at me and he kind of mouthed, "Good job." He gave me the good job and kept on going.
That's cool.
Yeah. So that was my experience with the patrolman of the Trace.
Nice. You get any kind of like regular Joes that stop and wonder what you're doing?
Yeah. The most common thing, and this is something that I love telling people who don't get to travel, because if you're from city, you stay in the city your whole life, it's like people who like the Midwest, I spent some time in the Midwest, and it's a totally different, ideology.
Yeah.
I mean, the things we worry about here in the cities, they don't care.
Yeah.
They're not worried. They don't even know what's going on, which makes them very unique. But rural Mississippi is the same way. It's a different pace, but it's also a different type of person. They're very hospitable, very caring, very loving. I haven't had any issues on the Trace or off the Trace in any of these communities. Everyone's very welcoming, and that goes along with people driving by.
Yeah.
So the thing I get the most is, "Hey, you need a ride?
Right.
Are you lost? Did you break down?" One guy was stopping traffic trying to talk to me. The cars behind him were starting to build up, and he's like, "Are you sure you don't want to ride?" He's like, "You shouldn't be out here." He goes, "Are you doing this for exercise?" And I said, "No, I'm trying to explain to him what I'm doing it for." He goes, "You just need to get in the back of this truck." Things like, he just kept going on and on. But that's the majority of what I get is people want to, people turn around. I've been given sandwiches.
Yeah.
I've been given different food items. I had someone turn around and give me, 3 water bottles and things like that. But yes, people are I think they're intrigued.
Yeah.
Because like I said, you see a lot of bicyclists, but you don't see anybody walking it. I don't think it's something that people would understand to do, right? And that's what makes this thing so unique. And that's kind of why I love doing it, is because when I first started it, I wanted to be unique. I wanted something to kind of stand out. I think anybody in business that's trying to build a brand or build any kind of element of marketing to bring their brand and their organization to life, you have to have your own uniqueness. You have to be different. You have to stand out. And I think that's what Walking the Trace does. People are very intrigued. Like, why is this guy walking? What is he doing?
Yeah.
So I have these little things that I pass out, little cards as people stop me or I get stopped. And it's a little information card. Hey, this is what I'm doing. This is why we're doing it.
Please consider donating.
Here's the website. Here's how you can support us and things like that. So, and those worked out pretty good. People have handed me $20 bills.
Nice.
Different types of gifts along the way. I mean, things that I can use.
Do you have a merch store or anything?
I don't yet. I do have.
Because it's the 444 thing is I was just looking up on my phone to see if there was 444.com, and there is, and it's like looks like it's a phishing site.
Yeah.
But maybe there's 444.org or
So what I've saved, and I did it when I bought jacobsaudible.org. I bought jacobsaudible.com.
Right.
In case it all leads to the same site. But at the same time, I did look up the 444.com. Yeah. It was taken. I think you could buy it, but that's a gimmick.
Right.
So what I did was I bought the 444guy.com. So I own that one. And I bought it because I'm going to use it for future use. Right now, if you go to the 444guy.com, it brings you to the walk page of Jacobs Audible's website.
Okay.
So that's what I've linked it to. But as far as getting the merchandise on the website, because we have hats, we have stickers, we're going to get into the T-shirts here shortly. But it's something I haven't built into everything else that I'm doing because the year one, we did some shipping. It got a little bit difficult,
right?
Because you have to hand pack these things and ship them. And
what if you just had a partner that did it all for you?
That's what's in the works. Yeah, I want to have someone, drop ship this stuff and just have me do it. We actually, about a month ago, I met with a local roaster of coffee. I'm a big coffee guy.
Yeah,
and other parents that have autistic kiddos, I believe, coffee is a way of life, because first 2 years of Jacob's life, he didn't sleep. It's a huge characteristic of autistic kiddos. They have trouble sleeping, especially in the early years. Some of them, I mean, up till 4, 5, 6, 7. I mean, maybe sometimes the rest of their lives, they just don't sleep well.
Right.
And so we lived on coffee for his early childhood. So I didn't even drink coffee before Jacob had this.
Right.
I had to know the benefits of it until, I mean, I was getting 3 hours of sleep every single night. But so we've partnered with a roaster who has made Jacob's Audible signature blend. It's a dark roast. It's incredible. So they have decided to put it on their website.
Nice.
And they're going to drop ship it for us. So to go to your idea,
there you go.
That would be the next thing, is to partner with someone to let them handle the shipping, the ordering, everything. And we would just, get cut a check, so to speak, quarterly, and use those proceeds to, fund our programming and our mission.
Nice. Well, very cool. So, I mean, getting into the benefit of all of this, how much of it has it generated, and how does it benefit autistic families and children?
So we'll be incorporated 2 years this August. So we're still in those beginning stages. We're still in the red. I've self-funded Jacob's Audible for 2 years, which I knew, just like any other business, you're going to self-fund or you're going to be in the red for 2, 3, maybe 5 years, depending on depending on the generosity, but also awareness and the growth of your organization, which is where we're at right now. I feel like a lot of people know what we're doing, but I know there's a ton of people that don't know. And I think once they do know, we'll be gaining more of that support. But what we do now is we have programming that we give back to the community in ways of my wife does a lot of the resource referral. So we'll have people call us, email us, and say, "Hey, I just got a diagnosis. What do I do now?" Because when you go through the process of getting a diagnosis for your child, they give you the diagnosis and they hand you a packet and say, "Your child has autism. Good luck."
Right.
And that's what we experience. So we know exactly what happens. So we help parents navigate that world. And so my wife is very keen on insurance, what the different facilities offer, what you can get with TennCare, what you can get with your personal insurance, all the resources that are available to you, some of the federal money that's available to you. My wife is very, very in tune with that. So she works with a lot of moms to get these kids into therapies and get them the help they need. So that's one thing that we pride ourselves on. The second thing is we really, really encourage parents to look into getting some sort of respite for themselves. You have to unplug. You got to unplug from the matrix. You have to re-energize yourself, because if you don't, you can't advocate for your child. And and that's with typical families. That's with anything in life. If you don't take that vacation or take that day off or take a nap, then there's no way you can possibly be at full capacity, which you need to be if you are raising a child with special needs. So that's something that we offer, and we have all these resources on our website. But the other thing that we do is we recognize parents. We want them to know that they're not alone. We hear you, we see you, we understand what you're going through, and we want to make them part of a community. And some of our programming is, we have a great thing we call the Autism Cut-a-thon. And it's an event where we invite all the community, either parents with kids with autism or without. Any member of the community can join us. And we give free haircuts to all the parents and all the kiddos.
Nice. And
it's very unique because, just like a lot of our resources, if you've ever tried to put an autistic kiddo in a chair to get a haircut, good luck.
Right.
It's very difficult. A lot of places won't even attempt to do it. They'll just say, "Hey, we don't do that."
Right.
Same thing with dentistry. Same thing with certain other things that we forget. We don't think about when your day-to-day life is caring for your child. You forget that, hey, they're going to have common things like, hey, I got to get a tooth pulled. Hey, he needs a haircut. But there's only certain types of people that will do kiddos that have special needs.
Right.
So this Autism Cut-a-thon is to encourage parents to get out of isolation, come meet other parents that are going through the same thing that you're going through, but also just spend some time out of your element.
Right.
Right. Even though the kiddos are there, it was great. We had 30 kiddos, 30 parents all together. The kids were everywhere. The parents were talking. We had parents crying because they said they've never been invited to anything. I mean, there's a certain dark isolation because you're embarrassed. You let the stigma of autism take over your life, take over your kiddo's life. A lot of parents think, well, I can't bring him out in public, or I can't bring him here because I don't want to be embarrassed, or I don't want him to be a burden upon the other patrons.
Right.
And we encourage them not to take that approach. I let Jacob go in Costco.
Right.
I cut him loose. I mean, he knocks stuff over. He's laughing and smiling. He loves the hot dogs.
Right.
But people do look because they can tell. They're like, well, but when they look at me, I just kind of shrug and say, I don't know what to tell you. Because they're like, I can't believe you're letting this kid do this. But I let Jacob be Jacob, and then we encourage other parents to do the same. But we offer, when they're like, well, Brad, I don't know who to bring him to. Well, that's where we come in.
Right.
Where do you live? What county are you in? Okay, this is who we have. This is where you can go for this. This is where you can go for that. But it's about community. It's about being a part. Just like Facebook groups. People join Facebook groups. Why? Because we're not meant to do things alone.
Right.
God told us that. He said, I didn't put everyone here to be isolated. I put people here to come together. Mm-hmm. And with the autism community, that's such a big thing, because if you try to go at it alone, I think that's where the negative results come in.
Right.
We have a lot of parents that get divorced. We have a lot of parents that the dads will abandon, mothers and dads abandon, and they go to the grandparents have to come in and take over, or you'll find a kid in some kind of foster care. So, but I know in my heart the reason is because they didn't make the time or the effort to really approach autism in a way where it can be manageable, but it also can be very fulfilling.
Right.
I'm a different man than I was 5 years ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I'm a different man I was 6 months ago, because I've learned the joy that Jacobs brings to my life. I learned the benefits of being a dad with a kiddo with special needs, because the people that I've met, the people that are in my life now, I would have never met them. I would have not known. I wouldn't be sitting here with you and enjoying this fellowship if Jacob wasn't autistic. And that's the way I look at it. And that's, our tagline with Jacob's Audible is changing the play on autism. Mm-hmm. And what that means is we need to change the way we look at it. We need to change our approach. Yeah. The stigma of autism, it's a scary word. It's a scary word. A lot of parents won't get their kiddo diagnosed because they're afraid. Yeah. They're afraid that they're going to tell them that their kid's autistic, and that's not going to be acceptable to themselves, because that's how it was for me in the beginning. I didn't accept it. I was in denial for a long time. Yeah. But so that's the kind of, those are the types of things that we do. And we want people to understand that there is people out there that are willing to help you. And that's what Jacob's Audible is all about.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. So everything can be had at jacobsaudible.org. .org. You bought the .com though.
I did. So if you type in .com, you're going to the same place.
It'll point to the same place.
That's correct.
So if you're watching the episode or listening to the episode, we're going to have all the information down below. Brad is going to be starting his walk in April. I may actually fast forward this one so it gets, out probably in the next week or two, to make sure that we get some awareness about it and, hopefully some donations going for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and there's several places. And if I can mention real quickly. Yeah. So this year I've gotten a lot of people that have asked me in the past, can we come walk with you? Yeah. So we actually have a virtual walk that we've started. The link is on the website. If you go to jacobsaudible.org and click on 444 walk, the link to join me virtually is on there. So it's Charity Footprints is the platform we use. You connect your Fitbit, your Apple Watch, or anything like that, and you get to walk along the trace virtually with me. There's a map there. You can watch your little icon. You can watch me as I go up the trace.
Oh, wow.
So, and it's something you can, motivate yourself to get in shape, exercise that month. And that's a great way to donate and share with us. And we also have, the coffee is going to be online. The hats, I do hand deliver the hats. Right. But if someone reaches out to me via email and lives in, let's say, San Diego, I will send that hat out to you. So we're going to put the different colors and different styles on the website here shortly as we warm up to the beginning of the walk, because the hats they're usually a big hit. Yeah. And I wear them.
It's the big blue hat.
It's the big blue hat. Yeah. And we use it as an advertising piece, because people stop you and say, what is that? Well, it's my buddy that walks the trace. You need to check it out. What is he doing? And things like that. Yeah. But I would encourage everybody to go to the website, check out what we're doing. And obviously all the support is 100% appreciated, because we would like Jacobs Audible to become a bigger organization, but to grow, we're going to need the funding and the support and the generosity of others.
Well, you heard the man. Go there now, check it out, jacobsaudible.org or .com, whichever your preference, and make sure that you, what's as little as what helps? Is it a monthly thing, one-time donation? I guess they could do whatever they want, right?
Absolutely, yeah. There's options on there. There's no minimum. I don't believe that. I don't believe in that. Mm-hmm. I believe if you're able to give $1, give $1.
Right.
If you're able to give $5, give $5, because.
Well, what is it that you're needing though? Put it out. Let's put it out there. What is it that you actually, to get you in the black, what does it take?
So our programming right now for 2024 is about $12,000.
Okay.
So it's not a lot.
Right.
It's not a lot, and that goes for our local events that we sponsor. And that's also, operational costs, because we do have a brick and mortar where we can invite parents in to come in and talk to us personally. So we do have expenses on a monthly basis, but a lot of our money does go to programming and things like that. So when we do the haircuts, some businesses will donate their time, or if we do food trucks or we do anything like that, but we still pay the vendors. Like the lady who does the haircuts, she takes a whole Saturday off to do this for us, so we pay her to compensate her for her time. So, but this year's programming is about $12,000. I spend about $8,000 on the trip. Mm-hmm. So all in all for 2024, it's about $20,000.
Okay,
would cover the year of cost completely.
Well, there we go. Go there, check it out, jacobsaudible.com.org. I think we can probably get you over that edge this year.
I hope so. I hope so.
Have you gotten close in the last couple of years?
We've managed to cover the cost of the walk, which is great. Right. Because once again, that's something that in the past I know that might be something that I have to support.
Right. Well, it'll be interesting this year, because the first time I heard of you was at that event, so you got exposed to a lot of people.
I did,
and now you're coming fresh off of a TV appearance. Was that live?
That was live. It's a live show here in Nashville. Yeah. It's called Local on the 2, and they do it live at 2:00, and it's from 2 to 3, and there's no mistakes or there's no editing.
It's all live.
It was all live. Yeah. But the one thing that, and that's why I love coming on your show, because you allow me to
you can pontificate.
Yeah, you allow me to ramble. It's a 4-minute segment, and
tough to get it in.
You got to be quick. Yeah, but I'm starting to get more and more of these opportunities, and I think the ultimate goal is with the walk, because that's my uniqueness. That's my pathway to bring attention to Jacobs Audible. Yeah. Is there will be that one big break of someone's going to hear our story. Someone's going to hear what we're doing. Like my goals, I want to go on Joe Rogan. Yeah. I want to go on Oprah, or something like that. Yeah. And really have something and an opportunity like that to break through. And I think once we do, I think Jacobs Audible will be, there's no limit to what we can do, because I'd love to do something every couple of weeks. And I want to sponsor it. I don't want parents to have to pay for it. I want to be a fully sponsored organization where I don't want you to have to worry about money to come do the things that we're doing. I want you just to, pack your kiddo up, bring them out to our event, and be worry free.
Nice. Very cool. Well, good. Thank you for coming out here.
Thank you.
And it's been wonderful to catch up with you once again.
Absolutely.
We kind of hit it off. We did a little bit of a podcast episode at that event. Have you repurposed the content for it, hopefully, and put it out?
Okay, yeah, good. I have. Yeah. And it's one of those things where, and that's what I struggle with too, Jim, is I don't have a lot of traction on social media. I mean, I do all this by myself. Like, that's what I tell people. I don't have a social media person. I don't have a website person. I don't have anybody doing marketing for me because we're just not in a position to hire anyone at this point. But as far as social media, algorithms and traction and things like that, once again, I think if my material got out to the masses, I think we'd be highly successful because of the uniqueness of what we do and the need for what we do. Because the autism community, just like many other communities, is underserved.
Right.
And that's unfortunate. So I really do want to be a big part of, and as big as I can be, to help service the communities, because here in Tennessee, there's a lot of rural areas. Mississippi's resources are probably a third of what Tennessee has.
Right.
I mean, there's nothing out there. And I want to be a part of helping and help parents as much as possible navigate this world of autism.
Well, I mean, I think you're in year 4 now, going into year 4, right?
Year 3.
This is year 3.
Year 3.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, the next couple of years, you're probably going to see some, that's just kind of the metric, right?
I'm waiting for Netflix to call. Yeah. Do a little documentary.
It could happen.
Yeah.
In the meantime, you get to self-document it anyway, which is what I'm sure you're doing.
Yeah.
Put up the stories and all that stuff.
Yep.
Make sure you're hashtagging and hash browning everything, all right?
That's right.
So this is the 5th attempt of me trying to ramp down the episode. So we're going to end it here, I think. And again, go to jacobsaudible.com or .org. Either one's going to work. Give what you can give, and let's support Brad, because I mean that's a big undertaking, walking 444 miles, man. That's so good on you, and thanks for being on, my friend.
I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Absolutely. And of course, check us out at Middle Tennessee, mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast. You can tell it's been a long week. This is a Friday afternoon. Again, we're always looking for as many downloads as possible. If you like what we've been talking about today, or if you know somebody who would be a good fit, send them over to MMTBP.com. And I have to put it out there every time I have this. If anybody knows Dennis Quaid, I want him sitting in that chair, because I just have a feeling someday he's gonna. That's what I've been saying lately. Put it out there, right?
Put it out there. That's it.
Check us out, mmtbp.com. Share, like, subscribe, rate, review, all that fun stuff. Again, Brad, thanks for coming out, pal.
Yeah, thank you so much.